joined today by Ryan Snyder of Transpo. Welcome, Ryan.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about Transpo Group and how you're involved in the Internet of Things.
Transpo Group is a transportation planning and engineering firm. We service counties and cities with various transportation services. One of the areas that we're getting into is autonomous vehicles now. So I'll be giving a presentation on the planning implications of autonomous vehicles. I'm a transportation planner. So what does this mean for cities?
So if you could just give us a quick summary of your presentation, what does it mean for cities?
It means a lot of things. We're going to see quite a few changes. This is very disruptive technology. It's going to change transportation, it's going to change the way we live, it has potential to solve a lot of societal and environmental problems, and at the same time it has potential to create a lot of problems. And so we'll be talking about that range of issues, but focusing on what policies we might think about to ensure that the outcomes are beneficial.
So for smart cities and urban planners, what are the benefits that they should be thinking about, but at the same time, what are some concerns or issues that they should factor into their policies and plans?
Well, potential benefits are, well, immediately safety. You know, we should have many fewer crashes. We killed 40,000 people on U.S. streets and highways last year. So we ought to have a tremendous safety benefit. But there's potential to reduce greenhouse gases. There's potential to free up a lot of space in our streets for other uses, to free up parking lots for other uses. We have potential to provide transportation that gives much better access for people and is much more equitable transportation.
Yeah, let's connect.
We can improve bus service. There's so many ways that we can improve the way we get around. At the same time, the downside is that we may end up with more vehicles and more greenhouse gases and more suburban sprawl and more congestion. It all depends on what policies we put into place.
What are you seeing in terms of the potential effect on employment, some of those kinds of things?
That's,
in terms of
that is,
there's a lot of horror figures out there about that. What is your
I think
read on the
that
ground
is
in terms of
probably
that?
the biggest, nearly unavoidable impact. Something on the order of 4 or 5 million people are employed as drivers, and that's a lot of people. And these are jobs that pay relatively well for people without college degrees. And this is a big problem in our economy right now. I mean, it had a lot to do with the last election. And so it's an almost unavoidable impact. On the other hand, there will be new jobs created in high tech, in potentially having new transmission capabilities along our streets and at our intersections. And those systems are going to need to be built, maintained, operated. That'll take some people to do it, but it's a different type of job training that will be necessary for those sorts of jobs. So
yeah, I've seen studies that upwards of 30% of the jobs, in some cases, I saw one on the UK the other day about that. Is that kind of what you're seeing too? Is those kinds of numbers basically?
30%.
30% of those jobs in that industry basically might be eliminated by autonomous vehicles and those kinds of things. So
I haven't seen those
Yeah,
numbers,
okay.
but I'd be interested to see them.
yeah.
But a lot of driving jobs, and probably some manufacturing jobs. In the long run, I don't think that we're going to sell as many vehicles. I think the vehicles we will have on the street will be driving many more miles. There'll still be a lot more turnover of vehicles, but I don't think we'll have as many vehicles sold every year. So there's some manufacturing jobs as well.
So in terms of your customers, would you say they're the city council, the urban planning? Who are they, and how are you communicating to them in terms of why they need to work with you?
Well, right now there's not a whole lot of paid work for consultants in sort of the planning and policy field is what I'm interested in. I do have, one of my clients right now is the California Department of Public Health. I'm working on a paper for them looking at the health and equity impacts of autonomous vehicles. But in the long run, we foresee a need for cities to have us help them devise public policy around autonomous vehicles. And probably at all levels of government, cities, states, county level, regional level.
So how can your organization as well as universities and other organizations help share that information out so that you're hitting at all the different governmental, city, and local levels so that they're being educated on the issues, topics, and the kinds of policy discussions that they need to be thinking about.
Well, so the presentation I'll be giving tomorrow, I'm giving 5 or 6 times a month now. And so taking that around and going to conferences like this, and there are others doing something similar. And at this point, we don't know exactly what those policies ought to be. We have ideas, but we're still kind of grappling with what policies ought we have at every level of government. There's a different role for each level of government to play. And we haven't fully defined those policies yet. So something we're still working on.
And when you say we, who is working on the policy framework at the different tiers of the government?
I think there are really the people who've taken interest in. So for example, in the city of Los Angeles, Mayor Garcetti has taken a real interest in autonomous vehicles. He really sees the potential impact and the benefits. And our Department of Transportation General Manager, Selita Reynolds, has taken a real interest in it. We actually have a full-time person now looking at policies for autonomous vehicles for the city of LA. And there are people in other agencies, in the county metropolitan planning organizations, and the city and county transportation planning, people that are just looking at it from different angles, and then there's other consultants who are interested in this field, and there's some academics who are studying, doing research in the area. I kind of see, and obviously the industry is very interested in policy. So I see academia, the industry, and the public sector, as well as some consultants, probably maybe 4 primary groups right now, but I think in time we're going to see more public interest groups come into play. They haven't really weighed in yet. We don't have any advocate organizations yet that are kind of saying, this is what we want autonomous vehicles to do for us. But we might think about some organizations like the Bicycle Coalitions. We might even think about AARP as an organization that might start to get more involved in policy. How is this going to affect for older adults? How are they going to get around it? It could dramatically improve their mobility. So there might be environmental groups that will take an interest in this field because of the potential to reduce or to increase greenhouse gas emissions. There will be groups that are interested in how we use public space. They will take an interest in it. And even organizations that are interested in housing. Because right now, we're looking at the potential to free up a lot of space in parking lots. So we don't need all these parking lots. What do we do with that space? And right now, I think one of our probably the greatest single and most difficult issue for cities to deal with is affordable housing in many of our markets. So this might be a reservoir of land that we can use for housing. So
Ryan, we're out of time, but I have to say this is fantastic, and it really is ripe for so many conversations at different levels, and it really requires bringing up the dialogue at a much higher level with across agencies, across governmental levels, and of course the special interest groups and the consumer groups as well.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, and every time I give the presentation, it opens up a whole
Can of worms.
And a long discussion because everybody starts to see the possibilities and start thinking.
What time is your presentation tomorrow?
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock. Okay.
Very good.
Great.
Well, thank you very much, Ryan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My
Appreciate
pleasure.
it.
All right.